noise you're hearing is my ventilator. Welcome to Page Turners They Were Not My Star Wars podcast. In this special episode of The Guest Awakens, I am pleased to welcome back to the show one of the best, if not the best, person in the Star Wars discourse. She is the co-host of Tarkin's Top Shelf and a frequent collaborator with Idiot's Ray and Kanata's Castle podcasts. It's Becca Benjamin. Hey, Becca.
Hi. Oh, that was very, very kind of you. I'm happy to be back and just happy to be talking Star Wars with like-minded Star Wars fans like yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm very excited for this opportunity because you and I have both had a rather adventurous last couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's almost been a month, which is kind of scary when you think about how fast time goes. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we start out in May with the end of the Bad Batch, and then 3 days after that is Star Wars Day, and we get Tales of the Jedi, or Tales of the Empire, I should say, in this case. And you also got to do something fun that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Um, why don't you tell our listeners, what did you get to do on May 4th?
I participated with the Make-A-Wish event with Star Wars Podathon, where we just collaborate, have a good time, do a live stream all day. Some of the interviews are pre-recorded, some are not. And we just talk Star Wars and try to raise money for Make-A-Wish, which is a wonderful foundation out there. Actually, for those that don't know, my co-host over at Tarkin Top Shelf, Mark, was a Make-A-Wish kid.
Mhm.
So it's near and dear to our heart to participate in this and to raise as much as we can and give at least a child a wish. It's just an important thing to do, and it helps those families and just gives them something to look forward to, something positive instead of the everyday visits to the hospital or treatment center, whichever. So yeah, we just get together and it's nice because you see the good side of the Star Wars fandom with that. Everyone jumps in on that,
Mhm.
and it's not just fans. I mean, they are fans, but you get people involved in publishing where they're, just giving things out for free, and it's just wonderful to like see that. So yeah, it was a good time.
I mean, it's your lucky day because I was also a Nicholas kid. So,
See, yay!
so it all worked out. No, I'm glad that you got to do that. And thank you for doing that. That's a very important thing to be doing. I donated to Podathon last year, and apparently my donation put them over a certain limit. So as a reward, they sent me some stuff.
Oh
I
yay!
got a couple of Funkos from them, a shirt, I think a hat, and some figurines,
Very
which I
nice.
have up on my wall. That was really neat, so I'm glad you got to do that. Tales of the Empire also came out that day. My goodness. That was
Yeah.
something. Um,
Mhm.
the stories of Morgan Elsbeth and Barasafi, beautifully animated as they always do at Lucasfilm. Some brilliant new insight into Star Wars. And that was an extraordinary moment. So, what did you think of those shows?
I like the animation. I feel like we don't get as much as we used to. I don't know why it feels that way, but it just does. So when Tales came out, and I'm hoping they continue to do these, different segments of Tales, no matter what faction it is. I enjoyed it. I love the fact that they picked Morgan and Barriss, specifically Barriss, because there's been such a long gap. We've all kind of wondered what happened. And I'm very happy with the outcome. To an extent, I'm going to go with that. Spoiler alert for those that haven't watched. I'm hoping that she's still alive. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
I'm in that camp. I'm in that camp that she survived everything. Um, and I also like to see. I was happy to see Morgan's backstory. You get more of an understanding of her motivations, what kind of makes her tick. I thought it was all beautifully animated. I mean, Morgan in the animated, uh, inner animated self really looked like the in person Morgan. So I thought they did a
Mm-hmm.
terrific job with that. But yeah, you're right. The animation is just beautiful. I mean, from how it started to where it is now, a lot of the terrain looks tangible. It doesn't look like it was animated, it looks real. So
Mm-hmm.
they've done a terrific job with that.
Mm-hmm. It's extraordinary to me to get to see Thrawn, get to see Grand Admiral Thrawn before, just Admiral Thrawn, also getting anytime we get more of Telegon, I'm very happy.
Hmm.
Telegon's like my guy. We need more of him. And I
I agree.
suspect he's going to play a large role when they start telling the story of Thrawn's war against the New Republic. I think Teleon will get more screen time. And
I
yeah, I certainly hope so.
I agree. I think there's definitely more story there that we just don't know everything, which is fine because I kind of think it fits with Ron. I don't think we're supposed to know everything.
Mm-hmm.
It goes with his mystique. But yeah, I'm excited. I was happy to see that and how they align him and Morgan. Yeah, I just thought, and I think the shorts are really good. Six to what are they, like 10 to 12-minute episodes?
Yeah, they're not long.
Yeah, so you can quickly go through them or quickly rewatch them. Doesn't take a lot of time to do that. And I just think they were beautifully done. And just for me, just long enough. I just kind of wish the last episode of Bears was a little bit longer.
Yeah, I got you. I got you.
Yeah,
But also getting to see General Grievous in all of his like horror movie, like
I
he's
agree.
scary in the right moments. Um, so then a week after that happened, I got to go to Disneyland, and I've been to Galaxy's Edge 4 years ago, but
Okay.
it wasn't entirely finished. This time I went all out. I got the lightsaber, the big fancy one, a green colored blade, green thrown like Qui-Gon. And I deliberately chose to make the hilt look as High Republic as I could. Because when the Acolyte was coming, I wanted a High Republic lightsaber. And
They're beautiful from
it
the,
was
yeah.
it was an extraordinary trip. So we went, and it was really weird. So it was Wednesday, and I'm going along, I go in Galaxy's Edge, see the stormtroopers walk by. They give me the I'm watching you look. And then I go around the corner, of course, there's the Millennium Falcon. And I had already experienced seeing that 4 years ago, but it was cool to see it again. I'm going along toward the ramp that goes up to Docking Bay 7, or whatever the restaurant is. And somebody passes by me, it's a dad and his daughter, and I hear the dad say, R2D2 is up the ramp. So I'm like, okay. So I go up the ramp, around the corner, there's R2D2. And then who comes around the corner but Ray?
Oh,
So I got a video of me talking to her for a few minutes. And then we go down further, and who happens to pass right by me but Sabine? So I said hi to her, got a picture there. Went down even further, and there's Ahsoka. So I got a picture of her, so it was really neat. But the part I just realized I forgot to mention is I was at Star Wars launch day in Tomorrowland on the way to Galaxy's Edge. And I heard the family go up the ramp with the employee saying, "Do you want to meet Darth Vader?" So I went up and met Darth Vader, in addition to everything else. And then later that night, I built my lightsaber.
wow.
And then the next day, I actually did make it into Olga's Cantina.
Hmm.
I got a nice Java juice at Olga's Cantina. And we also visited the trading post in downtown Disney.
Very nice.
So those were my insane Star Wars adventures. Um, it was extraordinary. And of course, I had to get the blue milk. And because I can't do the Millennium Falcon ride, they let me tour it.
Oh, very cool.
So I got to go and see the chessboard, get to see the cockpit, get to go around the inside of it. And then they said, "Oh, by the way, go over to Rise of the Resistance." And they let me do as much of that as I could. And look, I mean, that was extraordinary. So those were my insane Star Wars adventures. And
It's
then the week
wonderful.
after that is when you got to do something really neat. Now, before we get there, have you been to Galaxy's Edge?
I have in California
Mm-hmm.
when we were at Celebration Anaheim in 2022. I did go for Star Wars night there. So it was a very brief visit because it was just for the one night.
Oh my gosh, I said I didn't know you then because I was at that convention.
Well, a
I
lot
was
of
at
people,
Celebration that year.
yeah, no, and it's funny because I've seen pictures and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
mm-hmm,
my gosh, so we must have just
mm-hmm.
missed each other. But then again, there was so many people there.
It's
So
true, it's true.
I'm not surprised. I mean, I didn't run into everyone that I wanted to see. There's not enough time.
Yeah, I saw
Um,
Lauren Romo and I saw Alex and Lily Damon and I saw Ken and Joseph.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
and yeah, but yeah, so you've been to Galaxy's Edge.
Hmm.
Did you get a lightsaber?
No, there was, like I said, there wasn't enough time. And,
Mm-hmm,
for me, it's one of those things I don't want to bring that on the plane.
mm-hmm,
So I'll have to figure it out. I'll probably do a trip to the Disney World in Florida
mm-hmm.
because I can drive there. And then I don't have to worry about how
It's
many
true,
things, yeah,
it's
how many
true.
things I collect along the way. I can bring them home without worry. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, the experience of just being there
Mm-hmm,
was amazing. And like you were saying, the Rise of Resistance ride is just
mm-hmm,
phenomenal. I mean, my husband was with me and he is not, I mean, he knows Star Wars, but he's not a big fan.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and he was just blown away by it. He loved the interaction of it, like how interactive it was and getting arrested. And he just thought that was like the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
So, it goes to show you, you don't even really have to know anything to enjoy it, which I think is great.
It really is an extraordinary experience.
Absolutely.
Bringing you into that world. Now, I realized before we move on, I forgot to ask you the preliminary question.
Oh, okay.
It's a Star Wars question. Moment of truth here. Yod Horde, Soul Squad, or Razzle Dazzle? Or Dazzle Dazzle? What do you take?
Basil. You're talking Basil, from the Acolyte, correct?
Yep. Are you Yard Horde, Soul Patrol, or Dazzle Dazzle?
Oh, it's so hard to pick. I mean, I did change my handle on Twitter, X, whatever you call it now, as a Basil stan because
Mm-hmm.
I just think he's adorable. But you have to remember, I grew up with the original Star Wars, so when I got to see
Yes.
Ewoks were my thing growing
Yes.
up. So Basil kind of fits that. So
Mm-hmm.
it's funny. I love them all. I love Jackie. I love Soul. I mean, yeah, we'll go cute and fuzzy. We'll go Basil Dazzle.
All right. Maybe Lucasfilm should partner with Ben and Jerry's and make a Dazzle Dazzle ice cream.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
That would be great.
So, this brings us to what you got to do the week after I was at Disneyland. You got to do something really neat in LA. Why don't you tell our listeners what you got to do?
Well, Tarkin's Top Shelf did get the invite for the red carpet premiere in LA
Mm-hmm.
for Acolyte. So we accepted and we went and it was quite the journey. We're still kind of going through it, like we still can't believe we were there because again the turnaround
Mm-hmm.
was so fast. But yeah, it was an exciting time. A lot of familiar faces there, and just enjoyed the whole moment of it. Gosh, there's just so much. I mean, Mark and I did the tourist thing in the morning. We wanted to venture out, the morning of the event to find out where we were going to be going, where El Capitan Theater was in proximity to where we were staying. And, so we did that. We did get an invite from Lucasfilm the evening we flew in for us meet and greet. At the Roosevelt, which is right next door to the El
Mm-hmm.
Capitan Theater, where we got to mingle with other creators and we got to sit with Lillian over at Lucasfilm and
Mm-hmm.
her intern Logan. And we got to hang out with a bunch of other people, which was cool. And then we headed over and, you know, did our bag check and got to walk the red carpet and take pictures and hang out. And, you
Mm-hmm.
know, it was wonderful. I mean, the High Republic authors were there. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
and they were so welcoming. Mark and I
Yeah,
were
I
kind of,
just saw a picture of you with them earlier today.
yeah. It was great because Mark and I were kind of trying to stay out of the way of everyone coming down the carpet that were of
Mm-hmm.
importance. Because, we're just there hanging out. We're not part of everything. So, but they came running up to us, all the authors, Michael, leading the way. And it was really overwhelming that I choked up. And
Mm-hmm.
Michael's like, "Why are you crying?" I'm like, "Well, this is, I didn't expect you guys would even recognize us."
Yeah, yeah.
So that was wonderful. So got to hang out with them. Christina Ariel, of course, is just lovely.
Oh,
Lovely
yes.
online,
Oh,
lovely in
yes.
person, just sweet. And she just wants to be very generous with her time. So she was wonderful. We got hugs from Kristen Baver, but of course
Mm-hmm.
she was working it over there. She's interviewing everybody,
Oh,
so
yeah.
she didn't really have time. So that was nice. We got our picture with Diana Lee, Morgan Elsbeth
Oh,
herself.
yes. We love Diana Lee. We sure do.
Oh yeah, sure do. So she was just very gracious too as well. You know, uh, we were sitting in our seats and Iman Asfandi was coming up, walking past
Mm-hmm.
us, and I told Mark, I first said no, don't, but then I said yes, do it. He called out Jabba, and we got the fist pump in the air. He's like, ah.
Mm-hmm.
So, he's just one of us. It
Mm-hmm.
was great. It was a great time, really great time. And, seeing it on screen as
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars should be, it was just beautiful. The theater in itself is historic. It's just gorgeous. They just really showered us with all the freebies. You know, we got free drinks, free popcorn, churros. And then afterwards, a very exciting thing happened. As we were going down to meet Diana, because she had seen us in passing and told us she asked us to meet us afterwards in a certain hallway so we could get our pictures. And then we met Dave Filoni. So that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
It was
Mm-hmm.
my second time speaking with him, which was nice. Short, brief, you know, the whole thing, because they were having their Ahsoka reunion, as they should, because they were all there,
Oh,
minus
yes.
Rosario and Hayden, but
Yeah.
the rest were there. So yeah, it was quite the event, quite the evening.
I definitely followed your pictures. It looked like such a good time. I'm
It
like,
was.
man, Becca's getting the royal treatment here.
I think they're feeling that they need to do this now because I'm turning 50 this year. So I think
Mm.
we're like, okay, let's just give it to her.
Yep.
So it was very
Um,
nice of them.
did you get to meet any of the cast of the Acolyte?
No, we
Mm.
did see them from a distance, but they did kind of usher people in to get them seated. So you know, we didn't get that. We didn't get the round table, you know, interview that some of the others did, like Star Wars Explained did, and
Mm-hmm.
Kyle got at that. And yeah, we did not. We were not part of that. Which I mean, it's fine. You know, I'm not upset. Not really. Um, that's okay. There'll be other times.
So how many episodes did they show?
Two. We did get the
So the
two.
first two. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So we did see those on the 23rd of May, and then it aired on June 4th. So we did know things before.
What was it like trying to keep the lid on that? Mm-hmm.
It was difficult. You know, you're trying to keep that circle small. I mean, obviously you got to meet with people that you know that you saw that were there, so you know that they seen it, so you could have those small conversations with them
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. But everything had to remain private, obviously. It was hard. You know, Mark and I couldn't wait for other people to see it so we could talk about it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always hard. But you know, at the same time, you're like, well, they trust us for a reason, so let's not spoil that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there are those out there that got to be the first to say that they did something or that they know something. So we do try our best to keep a lid on things, and I think we do pretty well with that.
Yeah, I was thinking about if I had the chance, would I rather see it ahead of time or see it with everyone else? And for me, I think there's something fun about seeing it with everyone else.
I
Because then
agree.
it's that water cooler kind of you can have those like water cooler conversations about, oh, did you see the episode? What do you think of this and this?
Right. Sure.
And that's been really fun to do with a lot of friends. To really get into just, oh, wasn't that neat? And I love the week to week releases
Same.
because then you have time to process it. And let
Hmm.
me tell you, I needed a lot of time to think about that third episode. Oh my word. Anyhow, we'll get to that in a minute. But so what any other adventures you had when you were down in LA?
Well, you know, we did go down the Hollywood Walk of Fame, so I did get to
Mm-hmm.
see Carrie Fisher's star, so I was pretty excited about
Oh,
that.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, we saw Harrison Ford's, John Favreau. You know, we did the whole walk. We did the Hollywood Museum, so we did get to see that. We did
Mm-hmm.
um, Mel's
No
uh,
Steiner.
Mel's Diner Drive-In, yes, and
Yeah,
that was awesome.
in fact, I loved Mark's story about the catch-up. We have a similar story in our family. So many, many years ago, it was right after my brother's baptism. So this would have been 1997. We're at one of our favorite local diners, and all those guys are wearing are white shirts and ties, as you can imagine. So my dad is the old style ketchup bottles that you have to shake, like the one that got Mark. And so Dad was trying to get the ketchup out of it. He thought the lid was securely on the bottle. He had forgotten to screw the cap back on. So he's shaking it and then ketchup all over his white shirt. And the funny part is, he didn't notice until I said, Dad, you got ketchup on your shirt. So my grandpa still makes fun of my dad for that. Yeah,
Oh,
but yeah, that was our ketchup adventure.
yep. There's
Sounds
always
like
one.
there's always one.
Yeah.
But I know Mills Diner is quite significant in terms of just the history of Hollywood. If I ever get a chance, I'm gonna try to eat there.
It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
You really do feel like you go back in time. Not
Mm-hmm.
that I would know what the 50s or 60s were like because I wasn't around then, but it really does fit, American graffiti type film or Back to
Mm-hmm.
the Future, when Marty goes back and he's in the
Yeah.
diner. So it's like all that. And it was, yeah, it was really great. Expensive, um,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but it was great. But it's California,
Yeah,
so
things are expensive out here. It's true.
yeah, it is. I mean, I'm in New York, but I'm not in the city, so upstate, but
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean, I don't know. I was born in Provo, Utah, but I've lived in California since I was a baby, so I consider myself a Californian. And we actually don't live in downtown. We live like suburbs near the hills.
gotcha. Okay,
So we like the more suburban lifestyle.
same.
Not really big city folks. That's not us.
Me neither. It's too
But
fast.
I was just so happy for you guys
Oh, thank you.
that you got to go to do this. I mean, other good friends were there, like Goose from Triad of the Force.
I'm sorry.
Goose was there.
Oh, yes, yes.
Nick,
Um,
Nikki Kumar was there.
hmm
I think I'm trying to remember if anybody from the Bombad cast got to go.
I don't believe so. At least I didn't see them, so I can't be sure.
Alex
But
and
there
Molly
was
got to go, of course.
a lot of cosplay.
Oh
We
yes.
Yes, and it was beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I still, you know, it's amazing to me to see the High Republic stuff specifically
Oh
because
yes.
there has never been any live action, you know, imagery for them to take hold for this to make these
True.
outfits. Although I will say the garb that Christina Ariel has worn on her High Republic show actually fits with what we see in the Acolyte.
Yes.
Just throwing that out there, which is pretty cool because she got to wear them first. Um, but yeah, I mean, so it is really it's awesome to me to see all this talent just based on what they've seen in just drawings and sketches and
Hmm.
coming up with these outfits, and it's incredible. We sat next to a young lady, I can't recall, I think her name was Lauren. If she's out there listening, hello. She was dressed as Avar Kriss, and she was just
Yes.
adorable. She looked just like how I would imagine her to look.
Hmm.
So she did a wonderful job. But yeah, it just blows me away all the talent and time that is put into this to create that. And yeah, it blows me away every time I see it. So yeah, kudos to all those people out there that put that much effort into it. It's just amazing.
And the High Republic has been such a successful
Hmm
endeavor on part of Lucasfilm. And it'll end next year, sadly. But I have been enjoying reading and keeping up with the books. I'm a little behind on the comics. I need to catch up.
Same. There's just so many. So don't feel bad. I totally understand where you stand with that because I'm in the same place. It's hard enough just to keep up with the novels. So yeah.
It is, indeed. And then, I mean, it's extraordinary that only a few weeks after you got to go to LA is when the Acolyte hit, and boy did it hit hard.
It did. It
I mean,
really did.
amazing beginning. And I was hooked like instantly. Lee Jung Jae is my guy. I do love Master Soul. And Jackie, I absolutely love Daphne Keane. I mean, what a great cast, what a great bunch of people. And I just want to say, before we say any more, I just want to say how happy I am, how grateful I am of how much care Lucasfilm puts into these things. How much that they put their hearts and souls and every ounce of love and care into making these shows. Nothing at Lucasfilm is made half-heartedly. It's all made with absolute love. And they know what they're doing. I trust them. They know what they're doing. So we come then to the Acolyte. This was announced 4 years ago, I think.
Hmm.
What were your initial thoughts when they announced it? Do you recall?
Oh, I was excited. Um, I was invested then. I think it speaks volumes to the High Republic, um, and what we've been reading, especially because that in it of itself has its own little fan base, and we love it. We're so invested in that because it's so different to take the time to read a book versus turn on the TV and watch a live stream. So you really have to work for it, and I really feel that it's a very positive little fan base with the reading, especially this little era. So yeah, I was thrilled to finally get something from because it's backwards. Star Wars usually doesn't work that way. You get something on screen, then you get a book. This worked the opposite. We had all this material, comics, all the books, graphic books, the timelines book, the encyclopedias, and then we get a show. And granted, there's a span, but if you read the High Republic, it's been doing that anyway. You start in phase one, and then you go to phase two, which is like 350 years before phase one. So,
Mm-hmm.
you get an idea of what the Jedi Order was prior to the prequels. And as you're reading it, you realize what we once thought was the height of them is not so at all. The height of them is in the High Republic, 300 years prior. And it's crazy to see those differences. We actually just had Tessa Granton on the other day. I released a show last night,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
she really goes into it. And we have this wonderful conversation of compare and contrast with Elzar Mann with the Jedi Order and Anakin Skywalker and the Jedi Order.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, it's really good conversation. Honestly, Tessa just really does all the talking, and I just nod my head and say, okay. So
Mm-hmm. Okay.
she does a really good job on that. And it's wonderful to see because these writers know what they're writing about. Not
Mm-hmm.
just not just in that era, but the other eras. They know.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't just bring these authors in to write something and not have any research done, or most of them are fans, just
Mm-hmm.
like us. So they know what they're doing. So yeah, that's a long-winded answer. I was thrilled to be getting this. And then hearing that it was Leslie Headland,
Mm-hmm.
Russian doll, I got all excited. I was like, oh, this is going to be epic, So, and that's just it. I don't know if the fandom realizes how similar her tastes are when it comes to Star Wars, that they're very similar to Dave Filoni's. So I would imagine when they collaborated, they worked very well together.
Mm-hmm. I remember when they announced it, I thought, okay, interesting. But then the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it was a very smart idea because it takes place 100 years before the prequels. about 100 years after the High Republic books, meaning that the casual fan could go in, not know a thing, and it completely makes sense to them. And that's really amazing that has happened. Um, one of the things that I thought was amazing was Leslie Headland's enthusiasm. She is seriously enthusiastic. And I remember it was very interesting at Celebration last year, I think, where the cast was there, but they couldn't really say anything about their show at all. So I'm like, well, this will make more sense once we see the show. Then they could talk about it. But Leslie's enthusiasm was clear. And I thought it was a very exciting idea. We get to see the look of the High Republic finally brought to live action. And it looks amazing. In fact, if we jumped right into the show, this looks like George Lucas would have made this. Weird looking aliens everywhere, people in elaborate, interesting costumes, lots of just life, I guess. A very life filled world. It felt very much like the Phantom Menace
Mm.
all over again. Like, this is the kind of Star Wars George makes. And I also loved that when I heard the synopsis, I thought, okay, are we going to get a show that's like dark and depressing and gritty like Andor? Or are we going to get something more like Mandalorian? And I wasn't sure. I was a little bit concerned about that. But the moment I saw the first episode, I went, okay, I think I understand the tone here. Yes, there's a lot of serious stuff going on. But we also had Jackie making wisecracks, weird looking aliens doing funny stuff in the background. You're being an idiot, a lovable idiot. I'll say he's a lovable idiot right now.
Mm.
But it ended up being like just the right balance in terms of tone.
Mm-hmm.
Not too dark, not too light, just right. Now, I stayed away from pretty much every bit of marketing. Well, I had no idea. And to those listening, this is a spoiler episode. I had no idea they were twins. I only thought there was just the one character because I had not paid attention to any marketing. So that was like, whoa. Yeah. And I love the show is like unpredictable. Every time we have a theory, it ends up being wrong. I love that. I absolutely love that. Because then it's like, I don't know. I mean, I put out on Twitter the other night, I'm like, my predictions are I have none. But
I
I'm
like
just willing to go with the flow. So, did you, like, I assume, immediately when you saw the first episode, you went, yeah, they did it. Was that your reaction?
Yes, I think as soon as we get May walking up and paying the little alien her little token to find out where the Jedi is, of course we all know
Mm-hmm.
what Jedi she's looking for. I knew it then. It was going back to what you were saying. it was right there within that whole creature aspect. She nailed it. I love the fact that she's going kind of a mix of all Star Wars things. I love that she brought back what we only got really in Rogue One, and maybe I think Solo did it too, where we get the names of where we are.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that because as someone who wants to know certain things like that, that's me. I like to know what planet they're on, and at what given time, so I'm not guessing. And so I think that's great. And I love the crawl. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was great. I mean, because like you said, for those that have not read the High Republic, um, it basically gives them their own little synopsis of what's going on,
Yeah.
where we are with everything. But yeah, I knew it right then and there. I love the interaction with May and Dara in that moment, and I love the whole choreographed fight
Mm-hmm.
scene. I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
superb. Probably some of the best stuff we've seen since Chirrut in Rogue One. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it
Yeah.
out there. It brings me back to when I was a little girl and uh, my dad would watch all the black and white Kurosawa movies.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
He, all that he would watch everything with, and then all the old
My
Bruce Lee
favorite
movies.
director. My favorite director is Kurosawa.
See, there you go. And my dad was a huge Bruce Lee fan, so he'd
Mm-hmm.
watch all of that, and I never understood what was going on. But we had like 3 or 4 channels back in those days,
Mm-hmm.
and I would have to sit there because I was the channel turner. He'd tell me to
Oh
go up, so he
yes.
didn't have to move. But that's what the 70s
The
or the
old
80s.
days. Yep.
What the old days? Kids listening, they don't know anything about that. So yeah, so that's how that was. So it brought me back to that. And so watching these fight scenes really brings me back to my childhood. Because I really think that's something, if George could have done it in the beginning, he would have.
Mm-hmm.
So like you said, you get that George feeling to
Mm-hmm.
this. Yeah, and I like the storyline. Like you, I didn't realize they were twins until the trailer that they dropped on May 4th, and I had the captions on. That's how I knew.
Mm-hmm.
That is the only. I'm like, wait a minute, Osha? Who's Osha? Minute, there's 2 of them.
Yes.
And so I was like, this is cool. So I was really excited over that because honestly, well, here's the thing, twins is nothing new. We need to realize that it's nothing new. We know reading High Republic, there's
Oh
twins
yeah.
there.
Plenty.
It's not just Luke and Leia.
Mm-hmm.
So it was an interesting concept, and I like where they're going with this because those interviews that finally came out before we got to see anything other than trailers, Leslie Headland said it would be a Star Wars show, but it would have the Frozen aspect with Elsa and Anna,
Yeah.
and then
Mm-hmm.
it would have a
Mm-hmm.
Kill Bill theme going on
Yep.
too.
Frozen meets Kill Bill.
So there you go. So it all makes sense to me now.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
exactly. I mean, now I understand what she meant.
mm-hmm.
Which in the end, also the show includes something you like, witches.
Oh,
Witches. Ah, yes, dark side. Sorry, I shouldn't say dark side. Force witches.
I absolutely love that. Well,
I,
we got a glimpse in the trailer. We knew Mother Anastasia
yeah,
was
Mother
going to come
Anastasia. I mean
in.
that.
So we already knew that, and there was that real brief clip in one of the trailers where we see Master Soul, you
Mm-hmm.
know, hand a lightsaber to a young girl around this
Mm-hmm.
coven. So I'm like, okay, so this child that they're going to bring into the order is a descendant of witches. Now that's cool. She's not alone because Ventress was once trained to be a Jedi too as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's not unheard of. Um, so yeah, I was pretty excited to get more lore on that. I was very happy with that because in my mind, Leslie stood very true to not just witches we've read or seen in Star Wars, but to real world
Mm-hmm.
aspects of what witches are.
Yeah.
Um, it's a subsect of women. It's all women. So I was not shocked by that at all because
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you do any research on any witch lore, you're going to find that
Oh
it's,
yeah. Yeah.
and even with the chanting, it's always in threes. And I thought that
Uh,
was really wonderful that she brought
and,
that in. So yeah, I was pretty excited. Plus, the whole pull the thread goes all the way to what Dave was showing with the Great Mothers, the
right.
thread of fate and destiny. So it all ties together. So I thought that was
Mhm.
beautifully done.
And I gotta give a shout out Jodie Turner Smith as Mother Anastasia.
She's
It's
wonderful.
amazing. I mean, as soon as they got a figure of her, I'm buying it. I mean,
Yeah,
and I slipped earlier and said dark side witches, but what I meant is, just witches, but those some, at least in my mind, some of their magic goes a little bit dark side, but that's part of the fun of the show is examining those kind of things.
you're absolutely right. And um, I think it all, I think the whole point that Leslie's trying to drive home is that witches, no matter where you are, galaxy far, far away, real world, they're misunderstood. Everyone
Mm,
just perceives because you're a witch that you have to be bad. And Mother Anastasia says it. It's not about good or bad.
yep.
It's about power and who's allowed to use it. People perceive them because I'm using a Twilight line here. I'm a
Mm,
Twilight fan as well. Um,
all right, all right.
Aro, Aro, he says, only the known is safe. That's true. Most people fear the unknown,
Mhm,
what they don't understand, what they don't
mhm,
know. So this makes sense. These mothers are feared, or these witches are feared because no one understands what they're about. They're trying to preserve their legacy and keep it going, but no one else outside of that sect knows what they are.
mhm.
So yeah, outsiders are going to think that they're bad, but you got to look at it this way too. When you're talking of that specific episode, it's a perception based on OSHA's memory. It's
Yeah,
my take of
yeah.
this. So, and you have to remember the Jedi are the ones that didn't ask permission. They just kind of like crashed this ascension ceremony, didn't ask to come in.
If that memory is actually true.
Right, but again, this is how she sees it. But you have to
Yeah, that's
remember, it
true.
all goes back to Obi-Wan. You know,
Yeah,
a lot of
certain
the
point of
truth
view.
we cling to is our own point of view.
And I like that the show is dealing with that. That's really neat.
Absolutely. I love it. Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in case anybody listening gets the wrong idea, I am a very religious Christian person. I don't have any problem with witches. I like witches. I got a few friends who are witches. So, just throwing that out there. But it is interesting to watch, especially the idea that they created life. And it brought me to Darth Plagueis. The tale of Darth Plagueis alive. Like, use the Force to create life. Ah, be interesting to see how that goes. But it's also interesting to see because after that episode came out, the internet was flooded with lots of the Jedi are bad and the witches are good. And I'm like, well, let's not forget what Mother Anastasia said in that episode. As you quoted, it's not about good or bad. And I like that the episode doesn't make it's making a case for both sides of the argument.
Absolutely.
I
Hmm.
mean,
I agree with that.
We've got Mother Carl that wants to kill the Jedi, and you've got Mother Anastasia saying, no, no, no.
Mm-mm.
You've got Carl who wants to force the girls to do the thing, and Mother Anastasia saying, no, it's their choice.
Hmm.
You've got kind of Indara being pretty dogmatic, but yes, Soul trying to make a connection.
Yes,
We see the good and bad of both groups.
absolutely.
And what it comes down to is just what Mother Anastasia says. It's about power. Anyhow, I mean, obviously, I think to anyone listening, you and I love this show. And it's amazing, and I'm glad to see it. such a colorful and interesting depiction of Star Wars with a very George Lucas feel to it. With I mean, and we gotta say that I gotta say that Master Soul is like one of my favorite new characters. Lee Jung Jae is amazing. He
Yeah,
is so good in this show. He is so good
he is. Uh,
and just
yeah,
an amazing actor.
yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah. He is. I mean, as soon as I heard that he actually took uh, lessons on speaking English because he really didn't.
yeah, yeah.
I'm sure he could make his way through, but I mean, he really had to work at it. And you would, to me, honestly, you would never know it that he went through all that. I just
Hmm.
thought, he
Hmm.
knows the language. Um, but there's something in his face. He's very Qui-Gon Jinn face.
Yes. Oh, yes.
There's no poker face there. He shows how he feels, and
Hmm.
it's very Qui-Gon Jinn like where he talks about feelings. Most of the Jedi don't talk about that, and he's okay with really talking through
Hmm.
emotions, which is a High Republic thing. We're going to see why
Yes.
this 100-year lapse that's going to change,
Yes.
right? And I think it's incredible because even Vernestra, who I hold near and dear to my heart, just from what we've read about her, so seeing her now come to life
Yeah.
is just amazing.
And now she's turned into a politician, basically.
Well,
In
yes,
terms of maneuvering things in a political way.
yes, and I understand. See, I think you see the transition a
Yes.
little bit in Temptation of the
I
Force,
agree.
and I really do think she grew up fast.
Yes.
Even for a teenager, she was wise beyond her years, and she acted extremely serious.
Hmm.
Um, so to me, this isn't far off from what we've seen. I know it's been about 100 years,
Yeah.
but I don't think she's far off. And we have to remember she's experienced trauma early
Oh my
on,
gosh. Yes, she has.
and she doesn't like secrets.
No.
So those that have not read Temptation of the Force, have you read it? I want to make sure.
I'm about halfway through it.
Okay. So I won't go full out then, but she does know what happened
Hmm.
between Elzar
Between
and
Elsa and Chansey, yeah.
yes. And she actually gives him an ultimatum. Like,
Yeah,
you
I
need to go,
remember. Yeah.
yep, you need to go to the council or I'm going to tell him. She doesn't like secrets,
Yeah.
so this really affected her with so like,
Hmm.
you've known for 16 years, why didn't you say something?
Hmm.
So I can understand why she's upset there. I really
Hmm.
can.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, what a show. What a show. We're only halfway through the bit and it's already just everyone is talking about it.
Yeah. Good and
And
bad.
well, I mean, I've heard rumors that there are people who don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't know, often some of those skirt corner of the internet. I don't know. But no, anyhow, so what this is an extraordinary addition to Star Wars. And so is kind of what I want to spend the next little bit talking about, and that's the Bad Batch. The
Okay.
Bad Batch finale was one of the most extraordinary moments in Star Wars of all Star Wars. And what a show it's been. Let's cast our minds back to when they first announced it. Do you recall what you thought?
Of the Bad Batch coming out.
Yes,
Oh my
yes.
gosh. I don't know if I allowed myself to think because my son was just thrilled.
Hmm.
He grew up on the Clone Wars. That was his jam.
You raised him
Um,
right.
well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, everything clones, like that's his thing. Jango
I
Fett,
mean, you
Boba
are the
Fett,
best
all that.
Star Wars mom. You're the
Yeah.
ultimate Star Wars mom. So it's like, hey,
Aw. Well, thanks. Yeah, I mean, I did let them skip school for the sequels.
uh-huh.
I would call it Wookie Hookie Day. So
Yes.
we I would pull them out for those movies. But anyway, Yeah, so he was just thrilled because when he was a little boy, he was 8 years old at the time, 2010. We had a really, I don't know if I've mentioned this to you, we met Dave Filoni. Um,
Yes, I've
at,
seen the pictures. Yeah.
yep, at Celebration. It was just a chance thing. And this was before Dave was as he is now.
Mm-hmm.
You can't just stop him in the middle of a celebration hall now. That ain't gonna happen.
Mm-mm.
Um, but anywho, we got to talking with Dave Filoni, and he asked Jacob, if there's one thing he really wants out of Star Wars, what does he want? And being the 8-year-old little boy and quiet, and you know, uh, he said, well, more clones. So
Mm-hmm.
Jacob felt like he listened to me. It took a decade, but here
Yep.
I am. I'm
Yeah.
getting more clones. So for him, this was a personal win. And I think I was more excited because he was. But then when it happened, that first, that premiere
Oh
episodes
my gosh, one of the
and
best first
Omega.
episodes ever.
Oh my God. And Omega, like again, being a parent now and watching my kids grow up with Star Wars, especially Ahsoka. Like Ahsoka's a big deal in our house because I feel like she's my fourth child because she
Yes.
grew up with my kids. So Omega was the same thing. I mean, having this other child and
Mm-hmm.
just following her journey has
Mm-hmm.
been an incredible thing. And like you said, when this wraps up, it's the most remarkable thing we've had in Star Wars yet because we actually have a child that got to live a childhood
Mm-hmm.
and make a choice at the end of what she wants to do with herself. And
Yep, I'm looking at my Omega figure up on the wall right now.
it's incredible.
She
Like,
is
thank
so
you,
amazing.
story group. Thank you, story group, for letting the child have a childhood.
Oh my
So
gosh. The
it's great.
epilogue of the finale.
Mm,
One of the most moving things in Star Wars.
yep, I cried. Not
Um,
gonna lie.
I remember seeing Omega in the trailer. Well, actually, let me back up a little bit. So when they first announced it, I went, eh, yes, that was me. I went, like, we've already had enough stories in that time. Let's do something else. But then I saw the trailer and went, okay, okay. Um, and I saw Omega in the trailer. And like a lot of people, I'm like, I wonder who this is. I wonder what her deal is. And then the show begins, and it begins with a bang. Beginning with Caleb Doom in Order 66. I mean, that's an inspired decision.
Mhm.
But those listening who don't know what we're talking about, Caleb Doom is Kanan Jarrus from Rebels. Yeah, so starting it with that was amazing. Now, the Bad Batch themselves were introduced in Clone Wars Season 7. Now, when after Clone Wars was canceled, the rough animatics were available to watch.
Yes.
Did you watch the Bad Batch episodes in those old animatics?
Yes, I did. And I think they actually showed a few at one of the celebrations that was at. Um, and I can't remember if it was in 2017 in Orlando. I don't recall, but they did show them somewhere. So I did see them at a celebration, and then yes, I did watch them when they had them in their archives, like on the actual official site and that. So yes, I
Mm-hmm.
did watch them, which were rough and they're hard to watch because
Yeah,
they're
I
not
watched them
finished,
too, yeah.
but you get the gist of what's going on. Absolutely.
So we've had an idea of who the Bad Batch is for like 10 years.
Hmm.
Well, you finally get to see them in Clone Wars Season 7. And that was an amazing debut. They rescued Echo. And then the show begins. And it begins with a bang with Order 66.
Yes.
The Bad Batch, because they are quote unquote detective, their chips don't go off except the crosshair. And the idea of the twist of making Crosshair be the Imperial loyalist
Hmm.
is a very interesting twist indeed. Now, the Bad Batch begins very much as as Star Wars often does, archetypes. And there were some people I'm aware of who saw the first episode, a couple episodes, and went, they're just cardboard cutouts. I'm not going to watch this. Now, to those people who decided to pass on the Bad Batch, you're missing out on some really good storytelling. And these characters, even though they might start like 80s action movie cliches, the development of these characters is amazing. We get, of course, D. Bradley Baker as the Bad Batch. I haven't gotten to meet D yet, but I want to meet him if I ever get the chance. Other than you have Hunter, who's the very Rambo type guy. You've got the nerd in tech. You've got the big bruiser with Wrecker. Crosshair is like the. I think Crosshair might be inspired, I think, by in the Seven Samurai.
Ooh.
Kyozu is the great swordsman. He's very skinny, he's very narrow faced, a lot like Crosshair. I think that might be where they got the inspiration for the look and the feel of Crosshair. And then, of course, Omega. And just like Grogu, Omega, I think it's one of the greatest things ever given to Star Wars.
Yeah, I can't disagree there. I
Yeah,
can't.
she is like a treasure.
Mm-hmm. You
And
must protect her at all costs.
yeah, we are all absolutely smitten with Omega.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that she becomes a member of the Bad Batch is, no, I don't think it's something anybody predicted.
Mm-mm.
And it's a very interesting show because, in terms of the structure of the show, once the Bad Batch kind of goes into hiding, they're running around doing a lot of mission of the week kind of things. I will not call them filler, as some people like to call them.
Mm.
No such thing as filler unless you can. Anyhow, but that's getting a little off track. But in terms of the story, it's interesting because we have Admiral Rampart, Rampart, and in season one with a bang by destroying Topeka City.
Mm.
Very interesting storytelling because Topeka City had become so important to us fans of the Clone Wars. To see it destroyed, to see the cloning facilities blown up, that's pretty big.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in terms of an overall story arc, either one didn't necessarily have an overall story. I mean, it did. But then in season two, they doubled down a little bit on the idea of early resistance to the Empire.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, Senator Chuchi, I absolutely love. And Bail Organa. And of course, Rex running around doing stuff. And then one of the greatest moments in the Bad Batch, I think, is when the Emperor shows up in the Senate. When the senators are attempting to present evidence that will stop the well, that's meant to help the clones. But Palpatine comes in and pulls, as he does, pulls the ultimate like political coup on them and turns the tables on Admiral Rampart.
Yep.
But instead of it helping the clones, it ends up hurting them because Palpatine says, this is the trouble with the clones following their orders too much. So anyhow, Palpatine comes in and, as Palpatine likes to do, likes to twist things around. I remember being on the edge of my seat in that moment. Because as soon as you started hearing the, ding ding, Palpatine's coming,
Yes.
I think everybody went, uh-oh. So
Yep.
do you remember how you reacted to that moment?
Um, I just felt dread, and your heart sinks because you know what's happening. It's basically everything that we heard about, but now we're getting to see it, out with the clones, in with the stormtroopers.
Mm-hmm.
Now what happens? Where do they go? Like, what do they do? This was the purpose that they were created for. So now what do they do? And a lot of them, I just felt so displaced and hopeless because they don't know what to do with
Mm-hmm.
what to do with themselves. And it's sad. This is Palpatine at his best, and if you can say that about him, but this is what he does. And what's incredible about it is that he has always played both sides. He's creating all of this. He's behind it all, but yet he acts like he,
Mm-hmm.
had no part of anything. But he's the one pulling the strings, and it's incredible. I think it's a wonderful thing. Next month, July 9th, I think, Dr. Chris Kemshaw, excuse me, historian, will come out with his book.
Yes.
Yes, and
Yeah.
all of this, like all this history, the fall, the rise and fall of the Galactic Empire is going to be in there. So I think it's great because trying to understand what makes this individual tick, because at the end of the day, you have to realize, as much as Palpatine is this evil Sith Lord, he is literally just a man.
Mm-hmm.
He's just a man. So what makes him tick? Why is he doing, like, what's his ultimate goal? You know? So I think that's the one thing when you're watching him do these things, because we don't get to see him very often, especially
Mm-hmm.
when when he's the emperor, he kind of hides and lets other people do things. But yeah, it's really, how do you say it? There's a mystique about it, and it's interesting to watch how he works, because people either are completely on his side
Mm-hmm.
or completely against it. There is no in between. I mean, it's true. They're either,
Mm-hmm.
don't want this or they're with it. But again, it's one of those things where you don't want to make a ruckus yet. You have to wait
Mm-hmm.
because, he's way too powerful here right now, at that moment. So yeah, I mean, I was like, you just, you can't help yourself but to love to hate him in a sense, right?
I mean, he
You
is
know,
my favorite Star Wars character.
mm. He's amazing in his own self. But yeah, I mean, evil, we get so many different stories where we have this, persona of what evil is,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he is pure. I mean, to me, there was never any good within this
Yeah.
guy. He was
Yeah.
always just bad, rotten to the core, you
Yeah.
know? So yeah, it's amazing how George created this. And it's only lived on for how
Yeah.
many years now? So it's crazy.
And that, of course, brings us to the the introduction at the end of season 2 to a certain Dr. Hemlock,
Yeah.
and also more and more about Mount Tantus and whatever nefarious deeds they're up to there.
Hmm.
Omega surrenders herself to the Empire to save her friends, and that brings us to season 3, which I'm not the first person to say this, is the most like Andor we've gotten in animation.
Absolutely. You're not wrong. 100%.
Um,
Hmm.
And all of season 3 is this one big story arc that has so many incredible moments. I don't even know where to begin. Crosshair joining the good guys, Omega being very crafty at planning an escape. It's the one way out, but only in an animated form.
Absolutely.
We get Rampart, getting brought back in. We're getting now we know what Palpatine is up to at Mount Tantus, which will be set back by a few years. But as we learn in Mandalorian, the Project Necromancer keeps going on.
Mm-hmm.
We learn that Omega has a high midichlorian count. That was extraordinary. Um, we get to see Wolf,
Yep.
and we kind of get an idea of how he ends up maybe switching sides, at least to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so many amazing things. Dr. Carr, particularly at the end of season 2, when she says, "I'm your sister" to Omega.
No. Yeah.
That was one of the most like, what kind of moments in Star Wars? I mean, what did you think about that moment, that reveal?
It was a mix of like shock, but then at the same time, well, okay, it makes sense. So it was really an interesting mix of that. But at the same time, I felt she was different from Hemlock and the others. Like there was this
Yeah.
side of her that was wondering, am I really doing this for the right reasons?
Hmm.
She was constantly questioning, and I think we started to see that then because why reveal that, right? So I think we started seeing that unraveling with her. Like, she's thinking about what she's really doing and what she should be doing. So that moral compass was, starting to spin, and I think Omega really solidified her
Hmm.
compass for her.
Hmm.
Along with Nala Say, we can't forget her.
Oh yeah, Nalase is
She's
a
a
true
hero in
hero.
her own way. Oh, absolutely.
And
Um,
uh,
yeah.
in confession time, I think I have a crush on Dr. Carr. I don't know why. Nerdy scientist girl. I don't know. Maybe I don't know. If it's possible to have a crush on an animated character, and if that's possible
Sure you can.
to have a crush on an animated character, I think I kind of have a crush on her. You mentioned LSA. I gotta tell you, the finale here is maybe one of the most extraordinary finales for many reasons. And one of them is the Empire basically committed genocide
Mm,
against the Kaminoans. Now, we were wondering going into the finale, who's gonna die? Because that's kind of how it goes.
yep.
And a lot of people are predicting one of the clones. Nope, it's no LSA, but I'll tell you what, maybe the best death in Star Wars. One of the best because she died destroying Rampart and all the data for Project Necromancer.
Yep.
The fact that Rampart is killed by a Kaminoan is kind of the ultimate sense of justice.
I agree with that.
And also that he learned everything he wanted to know. And then, you know, that was the end of him. Interesting way to end it, but a heroic end for Melisande.
I
And then, of
agree.
course, we have to talk about the end of Rampart, maybe one of the best moments in Star Wars, is the idea of Crosshair has to make an impossible shot
Yeah.
and has to, Omega has to exercise her trust that he can make that shot with balancing his arm on Hunter. Visually, that's a beautiful representation of their love for each other as brothers. And I also thought making a shot with his other hand, very interesting choice.
Mm-hmm.
That Crosshair ends up losing his hand. Now, the hand we've been wondering about for a while because it had been shaking since season 2. And I know that I'm like, I wonder if the deal is there. And interestingly, he ends up losing that hand. Um, it reminds me of the biblical quote. Basically, if thy right hand, no, let not with thy right hand know what thy left hand doeth, or whatever. But there's also a metaphor in there about basically, if your hand defends you, cut it off. Almost like what happens with Crosshair is the hand is a representation of the stuff he did when he worked for the Empire. And once he loses that hand, he's free of that.
Yep.
And do you feel that that makes sense?
I do. I do. As sad as it was, it almost, I think, was a relief for him that a part of that, it's almost like being able to erase the memory. Even though
Mm-hmm.
it's always going to be there, but that was, like you said, it had done such bad, he'd done real hurt, real
Mm-hmm.
harm, and I think he was really grappling with that. And Omega was the only one who he would even speak to about it, which I
Mm-hmm.
thought was a beautiful thing. I mean, it just made this bond.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that bond right there on that bridge between her and
Yeah.
Hunter, her and Crosshair, it was a beautiful thing because Hunter even told Crosshair, which I absolutely love, he goes, trust Omega. She'll know what
Mm-hmm.
to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thought, and the three of them, how they worked all in sync in that moment, it was just an incredible thing because it's only something the clones, in my opinion, share. They share it with each other. It's very similar with the Jedi, how they can all understand or communicate without anyone else understanding how they're doing it. It's the same type
Mm-hmm.
of concept with them because they all share that same DNA. They can kind of understand where they're coming from, what they're thinking, what their next move is going to be. And Rampart just didn't get that. So that's ultimately how we lost out on all that. But yeah, and to see her run to them and she stops short just for a brief moment and then goes to Crosshair first.
Mm-hmm.
I lost it. It was just the most
Yeah.
beautiful moment.
The relationship between her and Crosshair was beautiful. Um,
Yes.
and of course, we know what happens to Rampart. By the way, I noticed something interesting about Rampart, and I don't know if this is just coincidence or not. He has the same hairdo as the guy in Zone of Interest, the
Hmm.
Nazi commandant in Zone of Interest.
Okay.
That's the
Yeah.
same hairdo as Rampart. Or no,
Interesting.
Rampart, Hemlock. Hemlock. He has the same hairdo as Hemlock.
Yeah. You're
The
right.
the Nazi parallel there, I think you can see it.
Yep. Oh,
Um,
definitely. Yeah.
but yeah, it's the end of Hemlock, who I gotta say, one of the great Star Wars villains, I think. Um, because he is scary.
Mhm.
Another thing we have to talk about is tech.
Oh, heck.
Tech's death at the end of season 2 was one of those amazing moments, but also we as a society right now are rather programmed to believe that, oh, he's not dead. There'll be a big twist. I survived somehow, the fake death universe, as some people are calling it. I'm actually glad that he didn't come back. I mean, I'm sad because I love Tech,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm glad because I feel that it makes more sense on an emotional level to have his sacrifice
Mm-hmm.
be not in vain,
Correct. I
and
agree with
not have it negated by him returning.
yeah.
There had to be a real sense of stakes here.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously seeing his goggles in season 3, beautiful stuff. But I gotta say about Tech really hit it off. Because he starts out as very much kind of just the nerd. But then there's that great episode where he's stuck in a cave with Omega.
Yep.
And I forget the name of the episode. I'm drawing a blank on the name of it, but anyhow,
Yeah. Yeah.
the conversation that they have is a beautiful moment in Star Wars. And so many people felt like, yeah, that's me.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, revealing that he is neurodivergent and has a hard time processing
Mm-hmm. Yep.
emotions. And I can tell you from my own experience, I have definitely felt that.
Mm-hmm.
Having a hard time processing some things.
Yep.
That was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And getting to have that moment in Star Wars and making that connection even deeper.
Mm-hmm.
Losing him was terribly tragic. But I'm glad he didn't return because I felt that it needed to be.
Well,
How do
yeah.
you feel about that?
I agree with all that. His death was, it hit everybody. You know what I mean? How can it not? It was an emotional moment. Omega Wrecker really, their emotions were so felt. It was just tangible.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but like you said, it was a it was an earned sacrifice for what needed to happen for them to go on. He
Mm-hmm.
knew that, he tried, and because he even said, I try and work this out so many times, but
Mm-hmm.
this is the only outcome. This is how it has to be. And he knew it, but it was a lesson for all of them. They took something from that. You know what I mean? And they've lived with it, and they've, everything that he's taught them, I think they've passed on, specifically through Omega. I really feel a lot of
Mm-hmm.
things that Tech taught her, she has carried through, which even piloting at the very end,
Mm-hmm.
going to fight the rebellion, that came from Tech.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, yes it did.
Even her little salute, it was 100% Tech.
Yeah.
Um, so she carries him literally with her. And I think that's a beautiful thing. But going back to the way he processes emotions, it really brings me back to my son. My son has had sensory processing disorder. Well, he was
Yeah.
diagnosed with that since he was 2.
Mm-hmm.
So he's similar in that regard. He's on the spectrum. So he totally connected with Tech right away, which now we understand more or less why.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think it's great because it's not even just about that. It's the fact that each person processes a specific scenario or a moment in time differently from the next. It's that perspective coming through. Not everyone is going to take it the way you do, and that's important to keep inside and to look at when you're talking to individuals. They might not take a certain experience the same way you would, and that's okay. That's okay. And it should be. But
Hmm.
that's how we learn, right? Is listening to one another and what the other person is going through and vice versa. So I think, like I said, I think there was lessons there and I think they've carried it with them, even with Crosshair. I mean, because he brought up tech, I think, more than anybody
Hmm.
in season 3. So
Hmm.
he obviously was missing him because he wasn't there. And I think he regrets missing out on on moments that he could have had with him because of his own poor choices. So yeah, it was just I just think all the connections were all there with each character.
That's really it. The emotional connection we have as an audience with those characters and the connections they have with each other
Hmm.
are really what makes this show what it is. That match is full of so many amazing moments, whether it's Order 66 with Kayla Doom, whether it's Hera on Ryloth. Hera's a little girl on Ryloth.
Hmm.
Whether it's seeing Taloka City destroyed, whether it's seeing um, the Emperor do his little coup d'etat on Rampart,
Hmm.
whether it's Crosshair killing Captain Nolan, in that one episode, whether it's Tech dying, whether it's the end where all the characters are happy together on Taboo. What an incredible show it is. And the epilogue might be one of the most moving things in recent Star Wars, with Omega as an adult coming to visit Hunter, and Hunter saying, "You'll always be our Omega." I mean, it just, ay, ay, ay.
Yeah.
And the, and also, even down to great moments like that, and seeing a slash of interest, and seeing others, but I gotta say that final moment is the perfect way to end this show. And the fact that none of the other Bad Batch died
Right.
was
Right.
actually a big shock to all of us.
Yeah. It was a good shock. We
Yeah,
welcomed it. It was
it
great.
it was like, oh wow, it was like it reminded me of the end of Andor, where when he's trying to help Rosso and Nix and the others escape. You think, is there going to be some last minute tragedy?
Right.
Nope, didn't happen. Um, the Bad Batch is, I think, one of the greatest entries in Star Wars. Omega is one of my favorite characters, and Michelle Ong is so wonderful as, is that her name? And they got the right actress.
Michelle Ang. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
correct.
And I thought for a minute there, like Natasha Liu but like that's somebody else. No,
No.
but Michelle Ang and of course Steve Bradley Baker,
Hmm.
Ian McDermott reprising his role as the Emperor, of course,
Right.
and all the other actors, like Keisha Castle Hughes, who I think should play Dr. Carr in live action. I think.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of people are calling for that or for her to play Omega. So we'll see. I
Yes,
mean,
yes, I agree
yeah,
with that too.
yeah. So we shall see. I mean, I'm assuming, and I probably shouldn't, but I would love to at some point see Omega cross over
Yeah, I agree.
into live action. I think there's a place for her, especially now that we know she goes on. Um, so we'll
Yep,
see.
yep. I
There's
mean,
room.
now that we've seen Sabine and Hera
Yes.
and Ezra and other people like that in live action,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, in fact, they could just bring Freddie Prince Jr. in and dress him up as Kanan, and he would look just like the character.
It's true.
Yeah. Anyhow, but well, we sadly have come to the end of our podcast today. Talking about our adventures and the Acolyte and the Dad Dash, and I tell you, it's an embarrassment of riches right now. I cannot wait for Skeleton Crew in the fall.
I know.
I'm very interested to see what that's going to be like. I have to confess, I've never seen the Goonies,
Really? Oh,
so I
you
need
need
to
to
actually watch it.
watch.
Yeah,
Yeah, you do. Recommend, highly
because
recommend.
I know that that's kind of the tone that they're going
Yeah,
for with Skeleton Crew.
and that's great.
Kind of the
Yeah.
E.T., Goonies,
Mm-hmm.
the Amblin from the 80s,
Yep,
Steven Spielberg-esque stuff.
exactly. Good stuff.
And then next year, of course, we get Andor season 2,
Right.
which I just started my Andor, the fourth time rewatching Andor. I just started the other day, so. But yeah, it's a great time to be a Star Wars fan.
Absolutely.
Of course, Temptation of the Force is a lot of fun. I'm only halfway through it, so we'll see how that goes. And of course, the High Republic just keeps going.
It does.
And the Acolyte, I mean, like I said, I have no predictions because everyone's going to be wrong. All my predictions are going to be wrong. So.
Right. But that's good storytelling because it keeps you guessing.
hmm And I mean, Leslie Headland, she knows what she's doing.
She does.
And my word, I can't wait to see some of the other twists and turns. But I certainly hope that my boy, Master Soul, is not guilty of anything terrible.
Yeah. I guess we'll have to watch and find out.
Yeah, but regardless, at this point, he's one of my favorite characters. Bad Batch and the Acolyte have introduced some of my new favorite characters. And I'm glad that we got to talk about both of these amazing shows. And I'm glad that you got to have your amazing adventure in LA.
Well, thank
Anyhow,
you.
Becca, I can't thank you enough for joining me today. Where can everyone find you?
Well, if anything, I would appreciate if you follow the show. So Tarkin's Top Shelf is on, excuse me, all social media at Tarkin's Top Shelf.
An
So wherever you
amazing
are,
podcast.
thank you. So wherever
And one
you
of
are,
my favorite podcasts.
I appreciate it, really.
hmm
So wherever you do social media, you can find us there at Tarkin's Top Shelf. So please follow us. You can listen to us wherever you catch your pods. We should be there. If you want to say hi to me, I am on Threads. I'm still on Twitter or X, and I'm on Instagram. Same handle at URAngelB. You can find me there.
Yes, and I got to, you're one of the most fun people to follow online.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and Target Stock Shelf is amazing.
I appreciate that.
And one of my favorite, it's like my go-to podcast.
We
I
try.
I will listen to the review of Temptation of the Force once I finish reading it.
Okay. Thanks. Yeah, and definitely, like I
I
said,
gotta hurry along there.
well, take your time, and when you finish reading it, definitely listen to our interview with Tessa Gratton. I mean,
Yes. Oh yes.
so many things are just, explained from her perspective, and it's really wonderful.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great to have just be in this amazing community of podcasters.
I
Whether
agree.
it be the Bombay cast or the Nerd Herder podcast or Target Thought Shelf, Idiots Array, Triad of the Force, Radio Rebellion. I mean, Force Center. These are like my go-to podcasts. But yeah, Becca, I'm so glad you joined me today. I can't wait to see where the Acolyte's going to take us. And we may have to have another conversation once the Acolyte's over.
Absolutely. I look forward to that. We
hmm
can talk about everything and how it played out and who is this masked figure.
Yep. And is there going to be another season? That's what I want to know.
Yes, there is. I'm
Is
going.
there?
I'm being positive. Yes, no, there is. Leslie has been in interviews
Okay,
saying there is
all
a
right.
season two.
I think I
So
missed that
yes,
one. Yes,
yes. So there will be a season two.
thank
So yes,
goodness.
yes.
Because I'm enjoying it way too much. And as soon as there's a Jackie figure, I want it.
Same.
And
Yeah,
another Anastasia figure, of course.
absolutely.
All right, everyone. Well, you know where to find me. Thank you all for listening. And yes, I would highly recommend you go listen to Tarkin's Fat Shelf. Um, well, my name is Brendan Moore. That noise you hear is my ventilator. Thank you for tuning in to The Guest Awakens, presented by Page Turners They Were Not, my Star Wars podcast. For light and life, and may the Force be with you.